Hey y'all, Rob here. Good to see you. Thanks for being here. Broadcasting from the top secret location in a different place than I've done it the last couple of times you see me. Actually, we have a little motel here in town that the people that were managing it got a house, moved off. So for the last 2 or 3 weeks I've been living here. I get to see my wife and my kids for about 5 minutes twice a day, maybe. And that's kind of what's happening. So I'm going to do the video response to Staff Sergeant BA's One Gun, One Knife Challenge. I should have done this a long time ago, but as is typical for me, I have overthought this and overthought this and overthought this and then rethought it until finally I thought, good grief, this is not how it was supposed to be. This should have been just a simple, straightforward something. When he first did it, I knew exactly what gun, what knife I was going to use. But then I thought about it and I was like, well, you know, there'd be some advantages if I did a different one. I first thought about using a great big buck knife that I've got, big old honking thing, and a combination shotgun rifle that I've got. But the combination shotgun rifle was 20 gauge and 222 single shot, and it's a great choice. There's nothing to go wrong with it. But the 20 gauge caliber in 222, I mean, you can fire a 223 and a 222 pretty much. I won't say why I know that, but is it really a good idea? And those calibers are hard to find, and you can see I started down the rabbit hole, and just everything I thought of, I could think of all the reasons that wouldn't be the best one to have. And so I kept going. Finally it hit me, you just got to go with something. He didn't set up any particular scenario. He left that for our own minds to create what we thought would be the scenario where we've got one gun, one knife, and that's all we've got. Whether we got stranded in a plane crash up in the far north of Alaska or the Yukon, or whether the SHTF whole thing had happened and this was all we were able to get away with, and that was up to us to think about. And I finally got to thinking, what do I usually have? What is most likely going to be with me at any given time? And that's what I finally decided was going to be the way to go with. And it's going to make a pretty solid choice anyway while I pick at my fingernail. So anyway, here we go. I'm going to start with the gun. I think most everybody else has been starting with the knife they're going to use. I'm going to start with the firearm that I chose. We're going to talk about that first. It is this guy right here. Not going to be fancy, not going to be tactical. I hate that word. Anyway, this is just going to be me. This is going to be something I'm likely to have at any given time. This is just a plain old Mossberg 500 series. This one happens to be in satin stainless steel with a fine, good strap that I put on it. Like my strap, I took this off an old piece of luggage and stuck it on here, and it has worked very well since I did that. This one right here is it's a pump shotgun in 12 gauge. It'll take 3-inch shells, it'll take 2 3/4 shells, it'll take magnums, it'll take just about whatever shotgun shell in 12 gauge, which is way more common and easy to find. See, there's that scenario thing. I put myself in a scenario where, you know, I might have to go house to house, you know, poking around through the rubble and the ruins trying to find some bullets. And 12 gauge ammunition is going to be one of those that's fairly easy to find. Plus, a 12 gauge shell is a little bit versatile. You can, if you had to, take an old 12 gauge shell, as long as you got some primers or even some black powder priming caps you could tap in there, gently tap in there. You could reload these things with black powder and small gravel if you had to, and still be able to shoot something. It's not gonna cycle as well if you do that. And by the way, there's nothing in the chamber, but I got the magazine loaded. We'll just get those out of there right now for safety purposes, inspect the barrel, and we're good to go. I like to drop the hammer just because I don't like leaving that spring compressed all the time. Right now I've got this set up for bird hunting, and so that means I can only put 2 shells in here in the magazine and 1 in the chamber. But all I got to do is unscrew this guy right there, and I can pull that plug out, and I can get 3 more shells of the 2 3/4 inch in here, or 2 more shells if I had 3 inches in there, and then 1 in the chamber. So that gives me 5 shots. I got 5 more shots right here in this holster, this thing, whatever it's called, shell keeper. In this guy right here, even in this case. Do you like the fancy case that I made for this? This is just a couple of pairs of pants legs that I stuck over because when I'm carrying around in my vehicle, it's a lot less conspicuous. If somebody, bad guy, looks into my pickup and sees a pair of pants in there, he might think there's a wallet in it, or he might not think about it at all. But if he looks in there and sees a gun case, that might get his attention. So this way, it's kind of gray man. I don't know, that's just a term. But it's a little bit less conspicuous this way. And I've even got a pile of shells, probably 12 shells right here in this end of it right here that stays draped over. So, that is my one gun. A shotgun. Who was it? Somebody the other day, might have been BA, said you can shoot just about anything, kill just about anything in North America with a 12 gauge shotgun, provided you've got the right shells in there. A lot of people poo-poo birdshot. They don't think birdshot's a good defense round. I'm sorry, a couple ounces of lead shot coming out, even in small pellets, at a close range is going to do a whole lot of damage. I have shot birds from a fairly good distance with plain 07.5 birdshot, which is the little stuff, and just tore them up. So don't discount whatever you've got in there. Different rounds are good for different things. If you've got birdshot, you can shoot. So that's what I'm going to pick for that. Now, my one knife is probably not going to be anybody else's one knife. My one knife is the one I carry and use all the time. You've probably seen it before if you've watched very many of my videos, and that is the Swiss Army knife. This Swiss Army knife right here has just about everything I need on it. The Swiss Army knife gives me an advantage doing this because it's not a multi-tool, but it's got a lot of the same stuff a multi-tool has on it. I've got a corkscrew, and don't laugh, there's lots of things you can do with a corkscrew besides pull a cork on a jug or a bottle. It's got a leather punch, which I've used over and over and over, and it's even got a hole in there so you can pull a thread through it and do a little sewing if you have to, kind of primitive. And it's got, I'm going to call it a gut hook. I know that's not really what it's called, but I can't remember. What this is right here, it's for getting a hold of wire and either twisting wire or using it like this to pull a piece of wire or pull something through like that. I've used that quite a bit, not as often. It's got the dandy little toothpick, which toothpicks aren't as important to me as they once were, but it's still good to have them sometimes because there's different things you can do. It's got the little tweezers that I've showed you before that are just dandy, dandy, great, wonderful little tweezers. It's got flat screwdriver blade, pretty good size, and a bottle opener and a little wire stripper. I've used the bottle opener plenty of times, and you can do other things besides open bottles with it. It's got a little smaller blade screwdriver and a can opener, and if you don't know how to use one of these can openers, you should learn because these things are great. I can open a can as quick with this as most people can with a regular crank style can opener. This has, I wish somebody was running the camera to do a close-up. This has a saw on here. You wouldn't think it would be much of a saw. This dude is sharp, and I have cut through 2x6s, 2x8s, 2x12s, fairly fat tree limbs with this little saw right here. This thing is amazing for as simple of a little saw as it is. I'm telling you, it is a dandy, dandy, dandy saw. I'm going to talk about axes in a second here. We're going to keep that saw in mind. And this has a pair of scissors on here that I use all the time. I mean, this is one of those tools that I use frequently. It has a small knife blade on here. Whoops. It has a small knife blade on here, right there, that keep pretty sharp. It's good for fine work. And it's got the bigger knife blade to do bigger cutting. I've done lots of deer cleaning and lots of bird cleaning and lots of fish cleaning and lots of apple cutting and steak cutting and all kinds of other things with this blade right here. You can split firewood with this blade right here. People talk about carrying an axe. An axe is a fun thing to have, but when I go camping, if I'm backpacking, if I'm out in the car or the pickup or whatever, and we've got the whole world with us, I've got a couple of good axes. But for backpacking, I haven't carried an axe in a backpack since I was a kid because you just don't have to have an axe. If you're going to build a cabin out in the woods, okay, an axe is good to have. Something to cut some big wood with. But I've done loads and loads and loads of backcountry camping. My dad taught me when I was a kid, if you have to have an axe to cut your firewood, you're probably, unless you're feeding a wood stove, you probably got too big a wood for your fire. Probably, not necessarily. Sometimes it's good to have a couple of big logs to put on there. But most of the time you can break them or you can lay them across, let them burn in two, and then keep crossing them over. And do it that way. You don't have to cut it up into nice pretty firewood. For the weight that it takes, an axe is not the best choice of something to have with you. It's a fun choice. I love axes. I promise I do. I've got several and I'm good at using them. At one time I was even good at throwing them and sticking them. But for splitting firewood, for doing little stuff like this, a little old knife like this is fine. I think I showed you on another video how to take this knife, tap it from the top. If you don't tap it sideways, tap it straight down, and you can split some pretty good firewood even with a little blade like this. So, after all that, that is my one knife and my one gun. And that is my video response, and there you go. Thanks for watching.